So I think the first thing I'd want to say, kind of related to the divisions that Christians tend to get into, is to say that evangelical Bible-believing Christians understand this differently and legitimately differently. So you'll have a whole group of people who will argue for what's called a young earth creation, and that is to take the exact dates that appear from the genealogies in Genesis and interpret them very precisely as a sort of historical record without any missing generations, and say that means that the earth is this long, was created this long ago, and the historical Adam and Eve were there. And then you'll have other Christians who will say, well, actually when the fall happens, when the man and the woman eat the fruit, and it talks about the whole earth, the whole environment being impacted by the moral decisions of those individuals, that curse that then comes on the earth actually ages the earth so that we're now totally out of connection between the years before that and after it, because it's such an impact. And they might point to the story of Jesus talking to the fig tree, and Jesus says one word to a fig tree and it ages 100 years in that moment and dies. Okay, so some people will understand it in that way and see Adam and Eve as historical figures. Then other evangelical Christians will say, well, there's this whole movement called intelligent design, and the kind of breakthroughs in science around DNA and the complexity of information in the very building blocks of life point to an intelligent designer, and his fingerprints are on every aspect, every detail of life. And Adam and Eve somehow fit into that as historical figures. And then other people will say, no, there's all this evidence for evolution, and so we believe in what's called theistic evolution, and there are actually at least 3 versions of that too. So we might look at the version that Billy Graham believed, which was that the first human beings were about 200,000 years old, 200,000 years ago, and that Adam and Eve were 2 of those individuals that God used, or that we heard the story of, that encapsulates what has happened with life. Other theistic evolutionists would say, no, Adam and Eve are not historical at all. It's a kind of parable. It's a story that expresses something true about the universe. So what I would like you to hear as a young person sitting here today is that each one of those interpretations of that story are held by Bible-believing, Jesus-loving Christians. And at the end of the day, each one of those positions, what it tells us is that there is a God behind this universe. And he's used different processes to bring that creation into being. But he exists. He's the mind behind it. And that as human beings, we have free will, and we have used that free will to damage and harm the world around us. So I personally would be somewhere in the intelligent design. Yes, Adam and Eve are historical figures, but I don't want you to hear today that a Christian that you're close to that believes something different from that, that there's some massive division between us. Actually, within the evangelical Bible-believing world, there's a seriousness and a desire for truth and to honour Scripture. And I think it's really important that we honour that as an intention, even amongst people who have different views from ourselves.